Samir, I'm so happy that you're here.
Thank you for having me. It's been a rewarding experience thus far.
Well, the feeling is mutual. You traveled, I don't know, you didn't travel half the earth yesterday, but you traveled half of the United States
yeah.
to come to us. And it means a lot to me that you're here in my own home and we can talk a little bit.
And thank you for having me.
I want to share with you a little bit about what I'm doing and who I am. We've talked a little bit about this offline, but for the sake of those who are listening or watching, I'm an Orthodox Christian priest, and I am very grateful to be able to begin to interview incredible musicians like yourself. I'm a happily married man. My wife and I this coming year will celebrate 32 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm grateful. I'm increasingly grateful. This year I'll turn 55, and I am beginning to look substantially backward on life. That is, like in the rearview mirror, now that I've lived half my life. In fact, that's prompted in part by a poster I saw a friend of mine has in his house called 4K weeks, 4,000 weeks, and it's the average number of weeks that the average American man lives.
Yeah.
So each little box is a week.
Do you have like a countdown? Or are you
Yeah, it
counting
would
off?
be on the wall, and you could look at it and see. And when I saw that about a year ago, I thought, I'm more than halfway there, and that put me in a little bit of an existential moment. But it also allows me to look back and think a lot about my own life. That led me to do some thinking about musicians and how they might look at these sorts of things. I also acknowledge I do so with humble gratitude. I hope it's humble. I know it's gratitude on our own family. My wife and I, as I mentioned, have been married for more than 3 decades. My parents, close to 60 years. Her parents, close to 60 years. Their parents, more than 60 years. Like in our family, we have the blessing that many people don't have, and so I count that as a blessing. But it also is helping me to look, I think, with, I hope, some more compassion in the world as I look around and meet others who maybe aren't in the same situation as myself. I'm increasingly aware as an adult and as a pastor of the brokenness of the world. And so this has led me to write up my questions for these kinds of interviews. I do love music. We had a chance to be in my little
Yeah, it's a
playroom.
cool space.
I appreciate it very much. I love the Gypsy Kings. That's why they're there. Flamenco music is way on the top of my list. I've had a chance. I've always wanted to play live on a stage. I came close with my friends, the Deweys, who are
It's never too late.
surf guitar band in California. For my 50th birthday, I got to do that. And anyway, I just share those things so you know a little bit about me, and the folks who may be watching will also know that. So I have an abiding love for God. I have an increasing gratitude for life. I have what I hope is an increasing compassion on humanity as I turn past the halfway mark of my own life, and that's kind of what brings us to talk a little bit today. For some, this kind of interview has been described by 2 of my new musician friends as, I never had an interview like that before. So it's not going to be, tell me about that song and how did you get the name FlyLeaf and all those kinds of things, but really to talk about probably faith and the meaning of life without necessarily talking about faith and probably mentioning very few religious words. Anyway, sound good?
Sounds great.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So the first one would be this. There are many ways that one can, in our land today, describe his religiousness or not. I would just like to start by asking, if you were raised with some sort of faith, could you talk a little bit about that? And where do you find yourself now?
Yeah, I was raised Christian through a few different denominations. I don't think my parents were very picky about which denomination, but I found a home in the Assemblies of God with I found a bunch of friends there. So that's kind of where I anchored myself. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful like sense of community, and there's a lot that I am thankful for from that. Where I am now, I've retained the curiosity of existence. And what is it, and how does the whole thing work, right?
Sure.
So I think my faith shift. I always wonder why, and so those are the questions that kind of led me through life. I think through the church, through the band, through my journey.
Right.
After that, just to figure out my place in the world and what does that mean. And when you start to go down those rabbit holes, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about life. You learn about yourself. You learn that we're all not that different. So you get a bunch of compassion.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely see in my life as a pastor and in my increasing capacity to sit with amazing people like yourself, substantial similarities across all people and all places. And that's a very beautiful thing. It maybe we talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that you've taken some substantial time to really look at I forget how you put it, through a much more focused lens or something like that. You were talking yesterday about seeing life through a higher resolution.
Higher resolution. Yeah. Well, that I think that's the natural trajectory, right? Like the more we learn, the better idea we have about how the world operates. Whether it opens up more questions, at least we have more detail about we have better questions to ask because we have more information. And I think that's really important, is getting accurate information and asking the best questions from that.
I was learning from my friend Dean Harbury, the one who has this poster of 4,000 weeks on his wall. He's a professional coach of some sort, and I've been learning a lot from him about how to ask questions rather than make statements. And I find that rather rich. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit. A friend of mine says pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. Pain is inevitable, but misery is optional. We've all suffered pain and loss. You yourself have suffered some pretty substantial pain recently. If you're willing, would you discuss what you've learned from a particular pain or loss in your life?
Yeah, I think that's a really good quote. Pain is necessary, but misery is optional.
Yeah.
And it really is, because when you think about pain, pain's a physical sensation, that you can't really get away from, right? If you hit your knee on something or hit your shin on the coffee table, it's gonna hurt, right? But the misery, right? The getting to choose how to respond to that is a choice. A lot of people don't realize that. Some people respond to the initial reaction that they have, like they hit a table and they lose their temper, right?
Right.
And that's very natural. But if you think about it, you don't have to. Your body will respond, right? You're stressed out because you hit your shin on the table and you're trying to run out of the house and run errands and stuff like that, and now you're in pain. But to choose how to respond to that is really up to us. We don't have to be miserable about it. We can acknowledge that it happened and move on. And it takes a lot of practice to get into a place like that. But I think it's really rewarding to be able to have a choice on how to respond to stressful situations or pain.
Would you be willing to share a little bit about your recent experience and talk a little bit about how you dealt with that pain in your own life?
Sure. Yeah. It is February right now. In November, I was in a motorcycle accident, and I broke some vertebrae and a bunch of ribs, and so they had to.
That's a pretty light way to say it. Like you're glued back together with rods.
Yeah. No. They used a power drill, I think, and
best not to watch the surgery on YouTube.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really interesting. I think about what I learned from that. And there's so much, like, it's like throughout history, pain has just been part of human history, like, and whether, it's been, forced upon an individual or forced upon a people or whatever, like, pain is just part of what we experience. I think I got an insight into sort of the extreme experiences of what humans can experience. And for that, like, in some ways, it made me feel connected to the human experience. It sounds weird.
In a most elevated of ways. It's not weird. You experienced it in the most elevated of ways. If I may be so bold as to say, you went off your motorcycle and you were not visible from the road.
Correct. Yeah. So it was around a curve, and I didn't judge the radius of that turn correctly, so I didn't give myself enough lean. And so as I was going around the curve, I slowly ran out of road. So that was my fault. But yeah, so where I landed was pretty far off the road and on the outside of the turn, so the cars couldn't see me from the road. So that was pretty annoying.
That's one way to put it.
Because you're laying there, and you're kind of you can't really move because it's just so painful, and you're hoping like someone will just see your I was trying to like wave my arm, and even that was super painful because like I had broken all these ribs, and so to do this was just a nightmare.
Mercy.
But yeah, just sitting there and being like, hey, I guess this is humans have endured worse.
That's an impressive response to have. I can't imagine myself thinking something so kind at that moment. Yeah.
I don't know if it was kind. I think it was the realization of my situation.
Huh.
I knew that if I said there's a situation, I was on the side of the road, immobile, and the number one thing was to get out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if I I couldn't waste energy. I couldn't move. So it's not like I could flail around or freak out. So I just had to lay there and think about my next steps, which ended up being. So I was laying. So after the first 15 minutes or so of the accident, some cars drove by, but they didn't see me. So I took off my motorcycle riding gloves, and I was like, the next car that goes by, I'm gonna chunk my gloves across or one glove at a time, right? So I had two chances. I have a left and a right glove.
Mercy. Mercy.
And so I was sitting there, and I was out there for about an hour waiting for the next vehicle. Because where it was, it's way out in the desert, and there isn't a lot. There's no through traffic. You have to be intentional about going to this place. No one's driving through here to get to somewhere. It's like you are going here or you're leaving here. There's no in between. And it was getting later in the day, and I was like, man, people aren't going to be hiking or picnicking right now.
Mercy.
So I was thinking I was going to be there for a while, but an hour later, I saw a car coming down the road.
It was an hour?
Just about an hour, yeah. So the first couple of cars came within the first 15 minutes. They didn't see me, so I was like, okay, the next one that comes by, I'm gonna flag them down with these gloves, and it didn't come for quite a while. So I was just laying there and trying to assess all the damage to my body. And trying to figure out, okay, I can still move my toes, I can still move my fingers. I'm breathing sucks, so I know I've broken these ribs, and like, so it's just like a kind of managing the situation from a prone position.
Were you able to see from the road the cars going by from your angle?
So yeah, the way I was laying, I could the curve was, I could see cars coming from from that way, and cars coming from over here because I was on the outside of the curve, facing the road.
Right.
So I could see it. I could see, I saw the movement over here. I was like, okay, car's coming. So I had my gloves ready, and I used all my strength and I chunked my glove across the, I was probably like 30 feet from the road, but I chunked it, and the glove went right across the windshield, and they slowed down and stopped.
That's incredible.
I was really grateful for that. I was like, oh man, I'm going to have to fight off scavengers tonight.
Well, don't ever play the lottery, Samir. You'd be wasting your money. You already won the lottery. You got the 1 in a million.
Yeah, I pulled all my luck there in the desert.
Mercy. Well, thank you for sharing that with me and with us. I admire your cheerfulness in talking about it. And honestly, I mean, when I greeted you yesterday at the airport and you told me that your accident was, did you say November 1st?
November 1st, yeah.
I mean, today is late February, so November, December, January, I mean, we're 3.5 months or something. One really does have a choice under those circumstances. All other things being equal, how is this going to affect me? And you faced it then, and you put your strength into it, and
I think
here you are.
It's really important, I think, for people to listen to their bodies, because it's giving you a lot of information if you just like pay attention. And I think I spent a lot of time before the accident like getting to know what my body, like the language of my body, and like what it's telling me, what if I feel an ache or if I feel something, like what does that mean? What's actually going on?
Right.
And I think that really helped me after the accident to understand, okay, what is the pain from the trauma? What is the pain from the operation? And what is healing pain?
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
I was able to sort of like parse those things apart and pick, okay, I can move this way because this is like, this is a healing pain, not a trauma pain sort of thing. And I think it's really important for people to listen to their bodies, so that and it's really helped me heal, I guess, more quickly. But because I healed, I'm still healing. I'm not done yet by a long shot. But the trajectory of like keeping my body active.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would have just waited it out. Like, okay, I've broken my back. I have a fusion. I'm gonna sit out for a couple of months or whatever, and wait for things to heal. And I didn't really do that. I kept moving, I was cognizant of what was like the shattered bones or what is the fusion. What are the stitches?
Right.
So I was cognizant of all those things. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to pull the stitches, but I'm going to move these muscles.
Yeah.
I did that consistently, so that by the time I got to this point, I can move around pretty well. I still get pretty tired by the end of the day.
No doubt.
Because I still have a long time, almost a year or so, they say, before I can really be 100%. But being sensitive and listening to what your body's telling you is really important. And I think we live in it's by whatever, this is the world we live in, but there's so many distractions and so many things keeping us from listening to our bodies. And we're often told to ignore our body. Like we were having this conversation earlier about ignoring sleep.
Right.
Right?
I can sleep later.
I can sleep later, right? Yeah. And I think it's really bad advice. I think people don't need to ignore what their body is telling them and really listen. Because the body's giving you all the information. If you're out in the woods by yourself, it'd be you alone with nature, and you would be hypersensitive of what your body's telling you.
Right.
We still don't live in a society that allows us to do that. So it takes an extra effort to get into that headspace, and it takes practice. And I encourage everyone to get to know themselves, like get to know what their body is telling. Like, be okay with your thoughts. Be able to sit alone with your thoughts. Be able to listen to your body, and yeah, don't try to fight it all the time.
The point about being, I am not a still person. I need to be still. I'm not. But your point about the practice of stillness is a vital human need.
That's it's taken from us.
And I would say I would say also appreciate what you said about being able to be alone with your thoughts. So many of us, myself included, when we hear the thoughts, distract ourselves in order not to be still with those thoughts and to deal with that.
Well, from very early on, we're trained, keep yourself busy,
right.
And don't trust your thoughts, and so we have this early training of like, okay, well, I have to can always be doing something. I can't rest because that's like laziness, and I can't trust myself because that's not where that's not where the truth is. So you're going through life not trusting yourself, fighting your body, and yeah, I think that it's taken its toll. People don't know themselves anymore, and they aren't listening to their bodies.
Maybe we'll come back to that idea. It's so important in our lives. Or maybe I would just say, from my own perspective, in our church tradition, starting on Monday, we devote 40 days to revert ourselves as much as possible to some of those basic human resets, let's call them. So I will be carrying your example with me for those 40 days, and being moved very much by your attitude and the way that you face that pain in your life, and the thoughts that come with that, and how you have come from that terrible and difficult experience to, I mean, here you are, and we're looking forward to putting the guitar back on you.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. And for the first month there, I was really nervous because I couldn't even wrap my arms around the guitar. Even like if I'm laying in bed and just to get my arms around it was super painful. And like moving up and down the neck was, that was not even a thought. I can barely hold it. And I thought, if this is what it's going to be like, this is a dramatic lifestyle change.
Yeah.
For me, like incredibly dramatic because I'm such an active person.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to be, having to live so cautiously, it's going to really change the identity of myself, like how I identify myself. And so it got me thinking, like, what am I?
Yeah.
If I don't have these things, and you realize, well, I realized, I'm still realizing it. That not like the definitions are like illusions. There's there's a way to help organize your thoughts about yourself or about the world, but they don't really exist. They're these constructs, and really we're alive in the moment, and wherever we are in that moment, that's what it is. Whatever we did in the past is gone. The future hasn't happened yet.
That's a beautiful way to put it. A man whom I met once, I had a chance to go on a beautiful trip to Jerusalem with him for a week. His name was Metropolitan Kallistos Ware. He's an Englishman with a most delightful English accent. In fact, if I may just say, it's off the record, but it's on the record. I mean, it's out of what we're talking about, but one time I had a little interview with him, and we had to do the mic check. And he has this beautiful English accent, and he goes, like you said, this is Samir's mic, this is Samir's mic, and we tested it, and this is Father John. He goes, Aristotle kept an axolotl in a brandy bottle. Aristotle kept an axolotl in a brandy bottle. And I was so happy I kept that recording, and I listened to it quite often. Did
Aristotle have an axolotl in a brandy bottle?
I have no idea, but that was the way he did the mic check, and it was delicious to listen to his English accent, saying a very educated Oxford man and all that. In any event, he taught us super clearly the very same point that you mentioned. The way we would just describe it ever so slightly differently because of our perspective as Orthodox Christians. But he said, whatever happened yesterday, we say, you put the sign of the cross on it, it's done. Whatever happens tomorrow, we're not guaranteed tomorrow.
Sure, yeah.
So we're not there yet.
It's the same mindset.
And the moment is now, which I suspect you're not talking about this, I don't think, and I'm not either, that, YOLO, you only live once, and that once is now, and, just do it and all that. I'm not talking about that, but being present.
Being present. So you can't, this is what I have discovered. It's difficult to be YOLO and to be present, right? Because sometimes when you're in a moment and you're just like relying on your chemical reactions and like I just want like an adrenaline rush, like it's hard to appreciate the moment, So but if you can be present in those things and feel what your body's feeling in that moment and really acknowledge it. That's what it is, I think.
Yeah.
You know, that's being present to me.
Curiously, I find, I mean, we have the benefit of recording on an iPhone with all this technology and so forth, but on this topic, I find it interesting in my experience. I mean, I spend half my life in church. It's what I do because I'm a priest. But recently, for example, we had a wedding. And what happens now at every single wedding? Everybody's got the phone out. Everybody's filming the wedding. And
no one's at the wedding.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And then the very strange thing about all that is most of us, myself, who first I would probably say, and then I don't watch the video either. So I recorded the thing and I was there, but I wasn't there. And then, so anyway, when that happens, I'll be thinking of how you taught me a little bit about being present in the moment. I appreciate that.
It's a game changer.
Yeah.
You know, you appreciate all these little things that seemed insignificant, but you realize that is life.
Yeah.
You know, the other stuff is just like stuff you make up in your head about what you think life should be. But you're you know, or at least for me, you know, I was making up all these expectations or like, you know, in regret and expectation. And I was like, wow, those things don't actually even exist. It's just like I'm weighing all these things against someone else's idea that is now like my gauge of whatever, you know, and it's really, that steals from what it is to be in the moment, you know, like when you're sitting in a diner having a really bad cup of coffee, that's a moment.
It is a moment.
You know,
one you'd like to forget.
Yeah, but you know, but it's something about that, you know, like sitting there and being, you know, hearing the conversations all around you, like and being surrounded by that life, like you're alive in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're regretting something in the past or thinking about the future, it's stealing from where you are.
Yeah. Yeah. This is rich. Thank you.
Yeah, I love these conversations.
Me too.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about meaning and significance, especially when you were describing how after the accident you couldn't put your even arm around the guitar and you moved the neck with this hand and all, and for a person such as yourself, for a talented musical artist, guitarist like yourself, that's an existential question in some ways, because though you're you are Samir, and Samir is many things. You know, you're a husband, you are a father, you are, you know, all the things. But for the vast bulk of your life, a guitar is a very prominent part of your self-definition.
It's been a prominent part of my self-expression.
Yeah.
You know, it's been like a constant companion.
Yeah.
You know, and when you don't, I'm like, okay, if I don't have that, what is my constant companion? I'm like, that's my mind will be my constant companion.
Right. Well, this is what I would like to ask in this case. So recently, with a dear friend, a teacher of mine, he says there's a big difference between success and significance. So he says success, money, followers, number of plays of a song on Spotify, concerts where you played, you know, those kinds of things. Significance, making a lasting positive impact, serving others, whose you are rather than who you are, or instead of what you do, which might be success, why you do what you do, significance.
Yeah, sure.
If you accept those kinds of ideas, and I realize that maybe they're not, you know, exactly lined up, but
they're close.
Let's discuss significance.
Yeah, I think significance is it changes and evolves as you grow, because you learn new things and you learn what you prioritize will change, and what is significant to you will change. That's just part of life. And accepting those changes, or, you know, being able to you know, navigate that rapid, you know, white water, is a skill that it's important to practice. You know, to let go and to kind of appreciate the moments as they're coming, and because I might have some goal for myself, right? And if I do this, it'll be significant, right? I just made that up, like I don't know that, I feel like if I do something, it'll be significant, but I don't know that, so it's like you can adjust, and you can allow yourself to adjust. I think, we reward consistency in people all the time, right? It's like, oh, but that sometimes doesn't leave room for growth for the individual. If they have to constantly conform to someone else's expectations, it's like, well, that's no room. That they left this person no room to grow and figure things out. Because what's significant is it'll be up to the individual. It's a subjective quality.
From your perspective as an individual, though, have you, if it's a reasonable juxtaposition, success versus significance, do you see any in your life? Do you see movement from one to the other, or the other to the one? How do you experience that as a person yourself, if I may?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think success and significance are sort of interchangeable. Because I don't, success is like, you have to, what's the metric?
Sure.
I don't know what you're gauging it against. So I mean, that's a general statement, but same thing with significance. For some people, I don't know what success is. I don't know. I don't even know what success is for me. Like you have ideas about what that means when you're a child, because you have all these influences from the outside world of like, this is what success looks like, and this is this is, if you want to be successful, you have to work hard and do this.
Sure.
But it's like, okay, well, what was the goal? What's the goal? Like, and is that success for me? Or is that a success for your idea of success, or someone else's idea of success that we have to sort of conform to?
But maybe the question that I'm trying to ask, trying to see just how to get it there. Let's imagine that. How old were you when you began FlyLeaf?
I was 17.
Okay, so imagine 17-year-old Samir were here, and now you're just slightly 40 plus Samir, right? So if 17 and you are sitting here together, in your view, what were you imagining at 17 in terms of success and significance, and is that different for you today? That's kind of what I'm trying to...
That's a great question.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I think at that time, as an artist, I thought that FlyLeaf would have the impact of a band like U2.
Oh yeah.
That was like what I thought was like, if we can do that, that's success, right?
For sure.
You know what I mean? Because
Sure.
they
right over here, there's War right behind me over here, the YouTube.
Yeah,
person.
Because they towed this line of like, it was hopeful, but it was real. Like,
Yes,
like
sure.
Like it was like, I want to do what they're doing.
Okay.
Sort of thing. And so for me, that was success for me. I guess that was like the model.
That's a high bar right there.
Yeah. With the indifference of Radiohead, there. So I wanted to have the social impact of U2 with like the artistry and indifference of Radiohead.
Okay.
That was like, I thought, this is what we're gonna do.
Right.
But the question was like, well, why? Why are those things important?
Right.
And I started, it's a lifelong journey. No one comes to I'm still learning and growing, but as of now, I ask that question a lot. Like, why? What's my motivation for anything? Honestly,
Right.
And it's really to, I don't know, to feel like I'm connected to the world in some way that feels honest.
Sure.
That I feel like I am part of the human story.
Yeah.
And that I'm able to articulate that in a way that other people will connect with.
Sure, I appreciate that.
But I don't know if that's even an achievable goal, because everyone has these. I mean, really.
You're amazing.
So really,
You have an analytic that it's amazing. Keep going. Sorry to interrupt.
everyone has their personal experiences, and there's no way I can delve into to know what's going on in your brain and how you're framing a situation, because I don't have your world experience.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah.
so I can frame things. I
You
can
definitely don't want my brain.
say same thing here. But yeah, so it's just like, what am I saying and who am I saying it to, and why? You know, like, is it because I feel lonely? I want someone else to get there with me.
Right.
You know, and at that point, it's like, well, am I even articulating these, these feelings efficiently? Probably not. You know, and everyone's going to make up what they want. You know, they're going to interpret it however they interpret it, and all the work I did anyway is going to, turn into something else. So it doesn't really. It's all kind of meaningless in some ways.
Mercy. Oh, mercy. That's reminding me of. There's a passage in Ecclesiastes. I remember this.
All meaningless.
Yeah, but it's so. I remember my youth. The guy who I emulated as a youth pastor. Well, he taught me. Then I became a youth pastor, succeeding him, and he remains a dear friend to this day. Though we have many miles between us. He taught me the word hebel. That's the Hebrew word in that passage. Hebel. It's a breath. Anyway, just came back to me in that moment when you're talking about it. Well. This leads me to the question of significance and what does it mean and all that. How about this? I'm in my 8th year as the dean of the seminary. When I came here, I was instructed, taught, encouraged by my own mentor. When you go interview, just put it flat out, like whatever they ask you, answer it straight up, and let the flat out strength determine whether they choose you or don't choose you. And I took that and I thought, they'll never choose me. Well, here I am. I then thought, and still think now, I don't have the gifts and talents for this. Why am I here?
Yeah.
And I learned there's a thing called the imposter syndrome. You know about this?
Oh, we can go deep into this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for sure, I feel this in my position. I would say, in a certain way, I feel successful, and the outward, I got married student housing being built right over here. We finished this and that. The class size is good. The finances are so forth, all good at the moment. But on the inside, I feel like a total fake.
Yeah.
Can we discuss this?
Yeah, we can discuss this. So this is, and I hope this will be encouraging for all the listeners as well.
I hope so. Yeah.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
It's so true.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
It's so true.
And it took me. I'm middle aged now. So like I've experienced a lot of life. I've
2K weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Dude, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like. If I have done all this research and I've read all this stuff and try to figure things out and I still don't know what's going on, dude, like there's no one can know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like we're all just kind of navigating the systems that we're born into and trying to make the best of it.
Yeah, that's the point I was going to add. I mean, we know a little bit about what we're doing. You're a guitar hero, you know what I mean? And you've got gifts and talents. You know what's going on.
But what did that is I didn't know what I was doing. Okay. And so I did it with confidence and people thought I knew what I was doing, but I did it long enough to where I finally figured it out.
Right. Sure. Yeah. You want to say a little more about the imposter part at all?
Well, yeah, I think it should be...
I feel it's strong.
It should get everyone confidence that like, yeah, like no one really knows what they're doing, but that's kind of like the beauty in it. Like you get to figure it out. And if you feel like you don't know what you're doing, welcome to the club. No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah, maybe the word of encouragement I might think about, I'm just thinking out loud with you right now, is by contrast to did you ever watch any of the Key and Peele videos?
I've seen some of them.
Yeah. There was this one where it was a sort of spoof of an interview of a basketball player after he won some huge the tournament or something.
Yeah.
You know that one? He's like, you can do anything, And it's like he looks right at the camera and he says, if you want, you can fly, you can jump off a building. Yes. And then it's, I want to apologize, because some kid tried to fly. Well, on the one hand, we don't have like, well, you can do anything.
Well, I mean, there are physical limitations, you know.
Sure. I guess I just say that you were not saying that. I'm just saying we don't. I don't want to take the perspective. Well, no one knows what he's doing, so you can do anything.
Oh,
But on the other hand, we want to say.
I'll unpack that
Sure.
to make it. So no one. The beauty is that nobody knows really anything, and it's the search for it that makes everything so interesting. So it's not about knowing anything. It's about knowing. You know, it's about being curious to try to understand or try to learn and reach out there and ask questions. Get over yourself, right? And your insecurities about not knowing.
Right.
And ask questions and be curious and go out there and look, because that's how, you know, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Right.
And you realize, oh wow, like it's and that's okay. Like you have peace about that. Like you don't have to know everything.
Right. I would say for me, it's also I'm no expert, and I'm definitely not first in line on this one. Probably near the bottom, but it is helping me at least to appreciate or try to extend well, he's working really hard, so let's give him the benefit of the doubt. You know, to start with the benefit of the doubt rather than an immediate, that dude doesn't know what he's doing.
Well, I'm not saying it tells other people they don't know what they're doing.
No. I understand that.
Self-reflection.
I'm just reflecting in my own life about how that's welling up in me a little bit to try to be more patient with people. Mm-hmm. If I would expect, if I know what I know about myself and how fake I feel in doing my work, and like we were saying at the very beginning, you know, most human beings have a pretty interrelatable experience in life. Therefore, give him a moment. The man's trying hard. You know, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Or that poor lady. You know,
absolutely.
Rather than saying what she doesn't know or he does. You know.
Yeah, because you don't know what they're going through and why they're responding to a situation the way they are. Like I can't know. You know. So to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Thank you for that. That's a big one. In my life, that's a big one. I'm very happy to hear that in your life as well. One of my greatest influencers or mentors in my life, Father Thomas Hopko of blessed memory, he died a number of years ago, March 18th. He said, he was quoting a famous quote in our church tradition that says, "He who dies before he dies, when he dies, does not die." And
is that like an ego death?
Yeah, you could say that. From our perspective, if we, let's say, if we lay down our life now, not ego death might be an interesting way to put it. If I lay myself down now, not my biological self, then no one can take anything from me, and therefore I'm free to live. In our view, and I understand you have a different perspective. That's also why we're talking. From our perspective as Orthodox Christians, we might say the world doesn't have a sin problem, it has a death problem. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, that great bumper sticker, what are two things that every person has in common?
Taxes and death.
Right. So if thinking through all that, I try to look as an Orthodox Christian to say, well, what is the purpose of life? And in our particular view, we would say, well, to thank God for Jesus and what he did for us, to try to live in imitation of him somehow, and for the gift that he gave us in what's in the scriptures. It says, turning ashes into beauty, exchanging beauty for ashes. Could you talk a little bit about your perspective on the meaning and purpose of life?
Sure. Yeah. I do think it's like success and significance where, you know, it is a moving target. You know, it's as you grow, you learn new things. You learn your place in the world. You learn, you know, like how the world operates, and you know, your perspective on things like meaning changes, and it should change as you learn new information because you realize, okay, the world is a dynamic place.
Yeah.
I think something, if you're looking for like a North Star to guide yourself by, I think something that I think about a lot, I maybe not practice, but is the reduction of suffering. Just like, if my presence somewhere can reduce suffering in some way, in some little way, then I've done something I think is significant. I don't know what that means in the moment, right? Because you don't know what the suffering is. That's such a big word, right? And it comes to all these ideas. But I think it's a good one. If you could think about reducing suffering, and like that's the ultimate goal, right? If someone's hungry, you feed them. If a dog is freezing, you bring them in. If you can reduce suffering where you are, if everyone concentrated on that, it would probably solve a lot of problems.
It causes me to reflect on two things. One, last Sunday, today's Friday. Yeah, last Sunday in our church service, we read a passage from Matthew related to the Last Judgment. And for me, it's quite a substantial juxtaposition in our particular Christian tradition because we have a very strong sense of particular beliefs that make us Orthodox Christians, which are very important. And of course, that's what the word Orthodox even means. But there's no mention of that in the Last Judgment passage. That is to say, Jesus will not say, "Did you believe X or Y?" At the Last Judgment. That whole passage, it says, "When I was sick, you visited me. When I was in prison, you came to me. When I was hungry, you gave me to eat. When I was thirsty, you gave me to drink." So it's just causing me to reflect on that a little bit. But I must say, because I love the Interrupters, who are up here on the wall, and I had a beautiful opportunity to see them play in Orlando in November, honestly, just a few days after your accident, though we didn't know each other then. They have a song called "Broken World," and it reflects exactly what you just said. If you're oh mercy, I just lost the lyric. That's so terrible. Tired of living in a broken world. If your enemy was drowning, would you drag him to shore? That is one of the lines that's coming to my mind right now. I appreciate that and hearing that from you.
Yeah, that's a good thought. That's a good line. If your enemy is drowning, would you drag him to shore? It's like the trolley, almost like a trolley problem.
Oh, what problem?
The trolley problem.
Oh, right. Gotcha. Well, speaking of broken world or fallen world, that's the name of that particular song. In our broken world, lots of things make the news. Betrayal, revenge, anger, those kinds of things. And we thrive on those things in news feeds and so forth. Let's talk about that which has lasting effects rather than fleeting effects. Love. Would you talk about a time when you felt truly loved and why?
Oh man, I feel it a lot actually. After the accident, for sure. Like Lindsay really took care of me, her attitude, because I was pretty cranky because I was in a lot of pain, and she was just so gentle with me.
Huh.
Yeah.
What's her background?
She marketing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I mean, she went to business school in Boston, and she's really she's artistic. It's really interesting. She's an interesting person because she is an artistic person who grew up and had a career in the analytical world.
Uh-huh.
So the way she applies herself is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's a really interesting person to be around. I love it.
I can see how much you love her when you're looking up. I can see you reflecting on the interactions that you have with her and how sweet it is to have a dear wife who was by you at that really brutal time.
Yeah, it's really incredible feeling to know that you have that companion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
would you share with us what is the most virtuous or excellent aspect of humanity
The
in our
virtuous.
day?
Okay.
Yeah.
Most virtuous and what heroic aspect?
Virtuous or excellent aspect. I mean, interpret it how you like, but we're trying to talk about the good in the world.
Yeah.
What do you see as the best thing?
I think the best thing
Best aspect
that
of humanity.
humans. I think it's empathy. I think it's being able to put yourself in someone else's position and sympathize with them. Yeah, I guess empathy and sympathy. You can't experience everyone's trauma or whatever. But I think the effort to see someone else's perspective
Yeah.
is huge. And I don't know if animals do that. I think they just eat each other.
They what?
Eat each other.
Oh, that's true. I don't know. I see some sort of pathos in our pups at least.
That's true. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. Animals do observe it. So maybe that may not be but it may not be unique to humans. It may only be unique because I can understand the expression. I can understand when humans express it. I can't understand when animals express it.
I see. I see what you mean. I'm not trying to make light of it. I was just thinking, like, I know our own dog Dixie. When if one of us is in another room, she's like sitting in a certain way, observation deck. She's that's not exactly sympathy or empathy, but it's something.
Dogs have that, right? They see right through you.
Mercy. I'm reminded 1,000 years ago when I served in Charleston, South Carolina, our church was built in a new urbanist community, this sort of pristine, idyllic setting that was made to look like an old European village, houses close together, near the road. People would theoretically talk to their neighbors. It didn't work, and stuff like that. And they would have little community gatherings. One of them was a community dog show, and this is a story with a purpose, actually. Anyway, we wanted to be involved in that community dog show. It was a church just to get to know our neighbors and all. But you think, well, what's a church going to do at a dog show and all that? Well, it turns out in New York, not far from here, about 2 or 3 hours from here, there's a monastery called New Skeet, and that's like one of the premier places in North America that trains German Shepherds.
Where is this?
Somewhere in upstate New York.
Okay.
New Skeet. And so, they are perfect dog trainers. Those people wait years to have a dog trained by the New Skeet monks. And they also make dog biscuits and all. Anyway, we wanted to give something to people as a gift. First, we asked the monks, would you come and do some dog demonstration about this amazing stuff? No, we can't travel like that. Okay. But we do make dog biscuits, and we're willing to send you some and to give away. And I thought, well, that's great, So, true story, a few days later, a tractor trailer showed up to my house.
Pallets of dog treats?
A pallet. The guy comes up to the door and he goes, where do you want the pallet? And I said, pallet of what? I didn't order a pallet of something. And here it comes, a pallet, boxes on boxes. So we bagged these little dog bones. We should have just given them all out in huge quantities, but we put each one in a little bag, put a little tag on it that said our church's name on one side, and the one good thing said about dogs that we could find in Christian tradition. Like if you look in the Bible, most of the references are terrible. Yeah. Like a dog returns to its own vomit, for example. Or in the book of Revelation, it says that the dogs will be outside the gates of the kingdom. And we don't take those things literally or literalistically, though some people do. Anyway, a monk in the 4th century had one saying. So there's a collection of the sayings of these 4th century monks. Father St. Anthony the Great, he has 38 sayings.
I think I know this quote.
Do you?
He was born a dog but died a gentleman.
That's a good one. Say it again.
He was born a dog but died a gentleman.
I'd like to save that one and find out who said it. But here's what he said. The only thing that he said that he's remembered for. A dog is better than I am, for he loves and does not judge. That's pretty good.
My dog's giving me the side eye sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
What are you doing?
Fair enough, but always comes back.
Yeah, it always comes back. Yeah.
Maybe just another question before we turn to the two-way interview, if that's something you'd like to do.
Yeah.
And so I I imagine, I mean, I know a little bit because I read the internet and those kinds of things. I imagine also that you, as a very successful musician and artist, that people put labels on you in all kinds of places in the media. Your fans say things, your detractors say things. If you have detractors, I have detractors, I know what they say about me. But if you could label yourself or describe yourself in 3 words, could be adjectives, could be nouns, doesn't really matter. What 3 words would you describe you?
Human,
Okay.
curious,
Okay.
in I think adventurous is in there with curiosity.
Okay.
The third word. I am persistent.
Persistent. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like to? Can you elaborate a little bit
If
on
I'm
one
curious,
or any?
if I'm curious about something, nothing will stop me from trying to understand what that is.
Right.
Yeah.
I've observed that a little bit just in some of our conversations off the mic. It's amazing how deeply you pursue, like when you got your mind on something, you have a, let's say, a voracious appetite of,
Yeah.
to learn about that.
I think might be a complex, like
Yeah.
all or nothing.
Oh, fair enough. Well, our technology also can lend itself to that these days. Number one, it's easy to go into a rabbit hole, and number two, there's a lot down that rabbit hole.
There's a lot down the rabbit hole. You know, I think it's incredible the age we live in right now, where we have not all of, but a lot of the knowledge of humanity at our fingertips. You know, and people are settling for like cat videos and stuff. I'm like, dude, there's so much out there. Like,
Yeah.
if you really wanted to go on the deep dive, like you have that ability, and the information is there. Like, it's really it's all there, and it's really cool for me because I don't have to like go out and seek it. I'm not going from, you know, university to university or library to library. You know, I can sit at home and do the research and
Right.
I don't have to, like, you know, spend a lot of gas money or whatever.
Your cat video comment really struck me right in the core. I don't, thankfully, I mean, in the scripture says, I'm glad I'm not like other men, which is not a good thing to say, but I'm not particularly moved by cat videos, but I can say, having looked at the 4K week, you know, thing that I was telling you about earlier, and noticing that I'm probably not quite 2/3, but pretty close to that at this point in my life, I you know, see a video and then just curl my eyebrow up and go, why did I just watch that? Like, I can't get that time back. And I don't exactly have a way to talk about what I'm about to say, but it makes me start to appreciate the difference between knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah. I mean, it also says a lot about the designers of these platforms.
For sure.
Because, you know, they have this understanding of the way our endocrine system works, you know, and how to work up certain hormones or reactions to keep us engaged.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's down to the science, and they've done a really great job at keeping us glued to these devices.
Yeah.
So yeah, you watch, you know, watching all these videos that mean nothing for so long. You're like, how did I fall into this trap? You know,
Mercy.
but it's curated. You
Yeah.
know, it's carefully designed to do that.
No question. And I mean, I don't know what labels others might put on it, but for me, that borders pretty much on somewhere between wicked, evil, diabolical.
No, it's a business. They're trying
I know,
to.
I know, and that's the frightening part. They are masters of the human mind and that body. You could say in that sense.
Yeah.
In that sense. Well, Samir, I can't thank you enough. I thoroughly appreciate you, and I'm very grateful that we have had some time like this to talk.
Yeah, same.
I call these two-ways interviews. Not that I'm a rock star. I'm an imposter. My friend and I, my college roommate and I, Andrew Stanley, we talked about, never did it, having a band when we were in college. We were going to call it Half Covered. And we decided we would we would only wear shorts. So I mean, like, so we would actually be half covered, and then we could play the first half of every song.
That's funny.
Because we
That's
never
good.
could play the whole song.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's a great idea. Actually,
those were fun times.
Yeah, that's a good gimmick.
But I named this little, I don't know, project, whatever we might call it, Two Ways, because maybe you've never, I don't know if you've met an Orthodox priest before or not,
I don't think I've had a conversation with
whether or not
Orthodox.
you would want to ask me any questions. You don't have to feel obliged, but I'm an open book if you'd like to.
Yeah. So growing up, you said you grew up evangelical.
I was in the sort of evangelical side of the Episcopal Church, but
Okay.
yeah, so not in a not sort of independent or megachurch type evangelical with no affiliations to other congregations, but in some way a church that had, you know, a worldwide presence and connected to one another through some loose agreements, at least. Yeah.
What early on, I guess you were raised in that.
Yes.
Did you have any other options as far as like choosing a faith?
That's a very great question. In terms of the choice question would be no. I mean, in simple terms, that's what my family knew, and it's who we were. Curiously enough, in my mother's life, my mom was herself, I think she would say, raised in the Episcopal Church, but not raised Episcopalian, I'm pretty sure. Her parents, oddly enough, would drop her off at Sunday school and go to a diner or something like that. So they felt it was important for her to,
Yeah, because they're adults. They already
get
know what's
some
going on.
faith, but they would go off and have breakfast and then come get her. That, that's not a great thing. But growing up, my parents, and to this very day, very, very pious, church-going Christians, still in the Anglican sphere. But as a kid, I guess I would say two things are true with respect to your question. One, we never missed a Sunday, except for one. There was one time in February in 6th grade. I'm not sure I could get the precise Sunday, but my brother and I tag teamed on our parents and just said, can we stay home? Can we stay home? Can we stay home? And for some reason, our parents said, sure, one time.
Relentless.
And we did. And but apart from that, we never missed a Sunday. From the 6th grade, from the 5th grade, I was, let's say, pun intended, I guess, though we're not rapture people, enraptured by Jesus and a wish to be in the youth group. And I actually asked my parents to ask the priest, could I join the youth group in 5th grade, even though you couldn't join till 6th grade? And he said no. And thankfully in my life, that didn't deter me. It just made me eager for my 6th grade birthday year, So there's that. I had two other experiences as a kid. One Sunday, I went to Scott Chappell's Lutheran church, because Scott Chappell was a friend of mine. We played soccer together. I went surfing for the first time with Scott Chappell, nearly died on that day. Nearly drowned, well, in exaggerated fashion, nearly drowned, but nearly drowned. And there were sand fleas, sea lice, actually.
Yeah,
These things floating on the surface of the water. That was brutal. Anyway, Scott Chappell, I spent the night at his house, and his parents were Lutheran, so we went to his Lutheran church one time. And then in the 8th grade, I went to was it 8th grade? 9th grade. 9th grade homecoming, I think. I went to the homecoming dance with a girl named Soraya, and she was a Mormon. And so I, much like your voracious appetite for information, when I was like, Mormon, what's that? And back then there was no internet. You had card catalogs, you had somebody knew somebody who had a video, and so I watched and read a lot about Mormons, but that was the extent of it. It wasn't really until college that I had any kind of different religious experience. I went to a Catholic church a few times in college. Went to a lot of not church when I was in college. Really, really left it. I kind of lived two lives, actually, in college. I lived my growing up life, loved Jesus, go to church, and so forth. When I would go home, at William and Mary, which was about 2 hours from our home, So it was not difficult to go home on a weekend, or, So
So you went to William and Mary.
William and Mary, yeah. My wife and I both went there, and we met with 3 weeks to go. Just in time, like the glove, the glove that you threw.
Sure, yeah.
I threw a Hail Mary glove in the 3 weeks to go in seminary, in college. In any event, so go home on the weekends, and it was like I never left. It was, I love Jesus, and let's go to church and all that, and then go back to college, totally off the reservation.
You had a sense of independence, so you're running with it.
Yeah, and I imagine, I neither want to make an excuse, making observations or excuses or whatever. I lived my life for several years in loose and riotous living. Not proud of that. I'm grateful to be forgiven for that. And I fear if I were put in a similar situation, being a weak human being, I might do it again. You know what I mean?
You haven't learned your lessons.
I don't want to be put to the test. I'll be free and open about that. But yeah, so that's kind of a meander on your question. But
this is good.
Yeah.
So growing up, so never missing but one Sunday school.
Right.
And now you've studied in depth.
Yeah.
Right. What for you has surprised you the most about what you grew up learning about the Bible and the Christian faith, and what were some surprising revelations when you started to delve deep into not Greek because the P minus, but
Samir's referring to the fact that I only passed my Greek entrance exam in seminary because of the mercy of my professor. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, was there anything surprising or something that you're like, wow, I'm not like something that's taken aback, or like, was there any information that was contradictory or that made you really question what you were taught growing up in the church?
I really appreciate that. The answer is plenty.
Mm-hmm.
How could I start? Well, I would say a few things. First, you get what you get when you start. Yep. You know what I mean? Here you are. You didn't ask to be born in this world, and you have your inheritance, meaning your family, your genes, your lot in life, and those kinds of things. And so you soak up what you have. I had an incredible mentor when I was a kid, starting in the 6th grade. His name was Father Fred Goodwin, dear friend to this day, though there are many miles between us. And the way he lived his life completely inspired me. In fact, though I'm not much of a Halloween fan, meaning October 31st.
Oh, not the Mike Myers movies?
I'm definitely not a fan of those, but I'm not a big fan of Halloween and, chainsaws and blood and all that kind of stuff. But back in those days, we had a youth group Halloween party, and that year, one of those years, Father Fred dressed up as me, and I gave him my board shorts and my rash guard and my surfboard. And he came to the youth group dressed as a surfer, and he gave me his collared shirt and his little pocket planner calendar, and I dressed up as I dressed up not as a priest in general, but as him specifically. And so I learned a lot from him, and his faith is very, very profound. We didn't get into as kids in the way I grew up in young Earth theory and all that sort of stuff. We neither had hang-ups nor even conversations about whether the Earth was whatever 6,328 years or whatever, which survey says bajillions of years old, and that sort of thing. But I would say that as a child, I had a childlike faith, and as a child, and as a young adult, having that childlike faith, I would say there was a degree of fervor, and I might say zeal without knowledge. So fired up for it, but didn't know it all, of course. Excuse me, as we mentioned in the car yesterday, I was a youth minister for some time, and on the one hand, I'm completely grateful to the people who put me in that position, because it allowed me to become more me, and it allowed me to be who I am today. I wouldn't be me without all that. On the other hand, it's like, put like a 23-year-old kid in front of 16-year-old kids, and I've got no particular training except for that I love Jesus, and I got to teach these kids, and that could mess a lot of people up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Although, quite honestly, I felt the same way. In the same year, I was hired to be a middle school Spanish teacher. Same 22, 23-year-old kid. I could speak Spanish, and I love Spanish. That's about what I had to give. Last year, I called Dr. Steve Pilch, the headmaster of the Shipley School where I taught near Philadelphia, and I said, "You're amazing. When I was 23, you gave me a responsibility nobody should have given me." Anyway, so there was that in my faith, a zeal without knowledge. What would have changed between then and now? I mean, I went on a pretty deep search within Christianity, not outside of it. I'm thoroughly convinced that there was a man who came from heaven whose name was Jesus and lived on the earth and did many miracles and died on the cross and was raised on the third day and all of those. I'm thoroughly convinced of all that, so I didn't feel the need to look in some other religion for what I would call the meaning and purpose of our life. But in the deep dive, I think, man, we were swimming in the shallow end.
Sure.
Even in the Anglican tradition, which has a venerable history, Christianity came to England way early. I mean, James in the New Testament went to modern day England, but at least by the 4th century, there was lively Christianity there. In any event, it wasn't that was the shallowest of all things, but by contrast, in the Orthodox tradition, we think about Saint Basil the Great, who wrote a treatise about the Holy Spirit, and there's a chapter in there on the word of. He spent a whole chapter talking about of. I mean, that's, how do you do that? I couldn't even have 3 sentences about the word of. So, that was profound and deep. If I could summarize an answer to your question, I would say that I've come to a point where, I realize there is way more to learn than I'll ever learn, which I hope puts me in a position of A, on the one hand, lifelong learner, B, a position of humility vis-a-vis, quote unquote, all of that. And without negating or neglecting any of the dogmatic truths, as we might call them, about our faith, I was terribly moved. When I say terribly, I mean like in a technical sense, not fear, but whoa. We have in our church tradition painted images of Jesus and his mother and the saints called icons. Josh Sturman, he's painting those. So I'd read many times about some of these that, it is reported, cry tears from their painted eye sockets of a mysterious oil, which we call myrrh, that happens to smell like heaven. I have some in my pocket right now. I'll let you smell it if you want. And I thought, that's crazy. I mean, and I remember as a kid, in high school, one of my classmates, Jen Carney, went to this Catholic church, and there was a priest who was reported to have the stigmata. There's in the Catholic tradition, like holes for where Jesus had his nails and all that.
Yeah, you get the wounds of Christ.
Yeah, and I remember how much discussion there was about this priest. Was he a fraud? Who would prove it? How do you know? And can you see? Well, in one of the early years here at the seminary, one of these icons came to the monastery right over the street over here. And first of all, when they brought it into the church, the whole place smelled like heaven. I mean, it's a bona fide and unforgettable aroma. Someone described it as if you could make oil out of fresh flowers instead of dried flowers. It's like alive flowers. It's something. And so the first thing that happened that. Then So here's a painted picture of Mary and Jesus in her arms, and at the bottom of it, it's in a thick wooden case like this, like a diorama, for like a frame that you would put a concert T-shirt
Yeah,
in to
sure.
save it forever. So it was in a thick box like that, and at the bottom there was all this cotton wadding, like you would put on before you put a cast on your arm, and
Does that hold the oil?
yeah, well, what's happening? So this is in a glass case, a clear glass on the top. It has its own ecosystem in there. Like it is, I'm telling you, raining
Yeah.
myrrh. It's it's sliding down the glass. It's all over the icon, and this wadding is sopped with this miraculous, incredibly fragrant oil, and like that's unbelievable. Then the priest, he took it, like if you would hold it like this, I mean it was much bigger, but he turned it on an angle like this, and people could hold their hands out, and he just hold it like this over their hands, and it was like a faucet coming in their hands. Like, what on the earth
You're
is
wasting
that?
the myrrh.
What is that? What is it? Then with that we anoint people. So we like mark the sign of the cross on someone's head or on their hands, or if their throat were hurting, on their throat. I brought this oil and anointed Kyle when I first met him at a concert with Lacey Sturm in right here in Scranton, and that evening, like, no more sick.
Nice.
It was, I mean, I don't know what to say about that except for I'm telling you what happened. So then he tears this wadding off of there and he gives it to me and he says, I want you to anoint the people because they lined up to kiss this icon. That's what we do. It's like you'd kiss your mom, so you kiss Jesus' mom. Just give her a kiss and tell her you love her. And then I would anoint the people with this oil, and that wadding, after I anointed 200 people, had more oil in it than when I started. And it was all over my hands. And I was wearing a wooden pectoral cross. It's a long answer, but I think it's important.
No,
It's important. I was wearing a wooden pectoral cross, and I said to myself, well, I said to Jesus, to myself, Lord, I don't know how all this is working, but is it too much to ask that if I put this oil on my cross will do this? You know what I mean? And I also thought to myself,
Condition the cross with the oil.
You ingrateful man, like, why are you look at what you're, like, talk about being in the moment. Like, you got this thing leaking oil, fragrant oil all over you, and you want more tomorrow. Like, what about right now? You know, nevertheless, I like covered my cross in this stuff, in this oil, and it didn't do that, by the way. But as I walked home, I said to myself, what am I going to do when I get to my house? Because I can't touch that front door. Like, I don't want to touch that doorknob. I'm covered. I came up with a term for it, liquid mercy. I was coated in liquid mercy, and I thought, I don't want to touch the doorknob because, like, there'll be no liquid mercy.
Mercy spelled with Y, M-Y-R.
Oh, I like it, Samir.
And, you know, I'm with ideas.
That's
I'm
great.
an ideas guy.
So the next one, so then I'm like, well, I got to get in my house. So, all right, like, try to open the door with touching it as little as possible. Then come in. You've met my dogs. I got Dixie and Daisy. And I thought, I can't touch my dogs. I'm going to touch my dogs with this myrrh? I mean, maybe it would help the dogs, but I'm just telling you what was going through my mind.
Yeah, and the way the Bible speaks about dogs.
Well, there you got that too. I wasn't thinking about that, but I thought, I can't touch my dog. It's like, this is not for the dogs. You don't cast your pearls before swine, like all those things.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, well, I mean, I got to go in. I got to walk my dogs. I'm a dog owner. You know, I got to take care of them. God gave me the dogs too. Then I thought to myself, well, maybe I'll wash my hands. Then I said to myself, if I wash my hands right now, they will become dirty. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trapped. So then I thought to myself, well, how long do I have to just stand here? You see what I'm saying? Anyway, why did I tell you that long story? Well, one, it's totally amazing. That's the first one. I mean, I'll just be so bold. Here it is, right? This oil, if I open it, even the room will become fragrant. Can you just smell how beautiful that myrrh is? Can you
Yeah,
smell
that's
it?
floral.
That's something, isn't it? So the first thing is, there's no describing that. We have a bishop. His name is Metropolitan Gregory. I believe I don't know where he lives. Maybe in Johnstown, PA, center of Pennsylvania, but he comes from Charlotte, Charlotte, North Carolina, and he has the perfect mix between a North Carolina accent and a Greek accent, because he's Greek by birth.
Yeah.
He was a chemist for his whole life before he became a priest and then a bishop, and that, I mean, like 20 or 25 years, he was a research scientist.
Yeah, so out of STEM into into becoming a clergyman.
Right. And he put that oil under a microscope. And he's like, there is nothing like it on the planet Earth. I mean, is it like olive oil? Yes. Is it like this oil? Yes. Is it like that oil? Yes. Does it smell like this? Yes. Does it have that? You can't put your finger on it. And it came out of the eye sockets of a painting that was painted with egg yolks, and there's no squirter in the back, or whatever, all that stuff. So the first thing is like this incredible encounter with a miracle of God. And I don't know, maybe one day they'll explain how that works. But right now, let's just say I'm stumped, and there's no way to defend that from the Bible or even from science. It's just like you just have to accept it in the moment. And my eyes did not deceive me, my hands did not deceive me, and that sort of thing. So to come back to your question, and I'm sorry for rambling.
No.
It has caused me in my faith to say, God breaks in from time to time. Can't say how or why. I can say how. I mean, there it is in that particular way. Can't say why necessarily. But one thing I know, and that is, if I ever go blind and I smell that smell, I must be in heaven. You know what I mean? So, further, I would say that from my evangelical upbringing until now, I have I am more confident in not needing to know every answer, but simultaneously that doesn't mean, especially from within our tradition, that one can't ask the absolute hardest, deepest, most technical questions. In fact, yesterday I had this is a very, very honest thing to share with you, Samir. Yesterday I had a conversation with one of my colleagues here at the seminary, and he shared with me a concern that he had, that I have moments of not carefully curated comments that make it appear that I am against, let's say, the intellectual tradition of the church, the deep, like a whole chapter on of. And we had a lengthy talk about all that, and I appreciated his correction when I said, I didn't say who I had met when I said I met a new friend today, and we had a very lengthy conversation last night about very profound things. And I told him, I wish you had been here with me, because he's super skilled in all the philosophers and all those things. Like, he's read them all, and he can quote them in their languages and all that stuff. And let's say, while still having the opportunity to ask every deep question, somehow it's like, it's enough.
It's enough. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes you don't have to explain yourself.
Yeah, it's not a way to escape the hard questions. We can ask them, but in the moment, it's also, I would say this. I think this maybe comes closer to answering your question in a much shorter time frame. In our church tradition, we describe theology in two terms: apophatic and cataphatic. Apophatic means describing God by what he isn't. And cataphatic means theology that describes things as they are. So because we believe that God is beyond us, there'd be certain things that we can't describe about him, because if we could describe them, then he wouldn't be God, you know? So some apophatic terms they all have negations on the beginning: invisible, incomprehensible, inconceivable, and so forth. Cataphatic be describing things as they are. I would say that as I have grown in my faith, I would say I've grown in a more apophatic way. And what I mean by that is I can't disbelieve. And I will freely admit that having been a Bible reader since I was given a Bible, somewhere I have my youth Bible that my parents gave me, and I signed in there, I love Jesus on July 16th, 1982 or whatever day that was. That sometimes the only thing that holds me, like the thinnest little thread to my faith, is this little vial of oil, which sometimes I feel bad about, because I feel a little bit like Thomas in the Bible. It's like, well, unless I put my fingers in his holes and all that. Sometimes I think, why does it have to be this extraordinary, miraculous oil? Why can't I just read John 3 and take it as it says? Well, I don't know about that, but I can say that so long as I can smell that smell and recall that moment, I don't know about anything else. But you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sorry for the long answer.
No. This is a good direction. It kind of goes back to my motorcycle accident. When I'm laying there, and the guitar is so important to me, but in a moment you can lose that.
Right.
What if you do lose the sense of that this oil is miraculous? What? Right. How does that? How do you think that would define your faith? Or how do you think that would affect you? And not just like, and I know that faith is a huge part of like your life, it's your career. But if this is the single thing that sometimes that's keeping you connected to that, and you lose that, how would you define yourself? How would you, like?
Well, that's a very hard question.
So let me try to rephrase the question.
No problem. Let's start.
So, how with everything that you've learned about life,
okay,
right, and how the world operates and your place in it, if the one thread broke, right, this oil, how would that change your perspective? Because it seems like you've already lived a lot of life, and you've already seen how things operate. Like how dramatic would that change your worldview?
Well, I'll start with 2 points, I think. First, I think it's important to say, or to iterate or reiterate, that in my lowest moments, this is the thread that holds me.
Okay.
I mean, I believe that I have a great amount of faith in what the Holy Scriptures teach us, and how this has been handed down through the ages, and in my teachers who knew teachers who knew teachers who knew teachers who saw Jesus, and that sort of thing. So I still have a good confidence in that. Apart from this, I do have very low days, for sure. Mm-hmm. And on those low days, I'm just speaking openly that I couldn't just read a psalm or consider some passage in Matthew's gospel and sort of well up faith because I read that again, but rather the experience of seeing that icon weep myrrh, observing the glass, more than trickle down, the wadding, all of that, that breaking in of God from the outside sustains me, let's say. I must admit, I think humbly, that it's very difficult for me to imagine what would it be like if all of that were evaporated from me. The closest I can come to that is if my priesthood were taken from me. So while I think in a spiritual way, for sure, there is a difference between ordination and being an amazing and world famous guitar player. In a similar fashion, your being a musician, an artist, band member, and all that is an expression of who you are, I think is the way you described it a little bit earlier. And in a similar sense, being a priest defines me. If that were taken from me, or if I spoiled it in some way and couldn't have that, I don't know the right words for it.
It's stripped away for some reason.
It's at this point, I can only imagine, much like you started in FlyLeaf at 17. I mean, you were, between then and now is more than half your life. More than half your life as an adult, your whole identity is associated with that. How intimately you link that, the guitar player and Samir, I mean, in a certain way, it's like one in essence and undivided, but in other ways, you're you, and you're not always.
I had to consider the fact of, like, if I lose these physical abilities, what does that mean for me as a person? Like, who am I? What am I?
Right. So let me try to put I'm not trying to skirt the question. I'm trying to find
This is a big question.
Trying to get
and there's no right answer.
Sure. So I'm thinking, if well, let me put myself in a similar position to you, because if I were in a terrible accident and I broke my back and I were incapacitated, bedridden, and let's say that were more permanent and I could regain myself, but I didn't have the physical capacity to stand at the altar anymore. Honestly, I really fear that happening. Not the accident part.
The repercussions?
Not even the repercussions in an external way, but I think it will, remember we were talking earlier about imposter theory, imposter syndrome. I fear it would expose how weak a Christian I am.
Oh, yeah, sure. Because you feel like an imposter, yeah.
Well, because I mean, I believe. Believe me, I believe. I mean, I don't want to play that down in any way, though I want to be honest about expressing serious doubts that I have. But at the same time, one thing you noted in passing, probably you didn't know that you said it, though I noted because of a way that we talk about things differently. Like, I am a priest, but it's not my job. In terms of how we understand that existentially speaking, but it can be said that I am publicly a priest, a pastor, and I have my own internal spiritual life, which more often than not does not match the outside. It's usually much better on the outside, let's say.
Sure.
I mean, you know, I have my masks like I imagine
Everyone
most human
does.
beings do. So I, much like I said, I think when I was talking about if I you know got to go back to college and do it all over again, would I be a more virtuous person and so forth? And I fear to go back to that. I have a certain fear of, let's say, losing my capacity to serve as a priest, whatever form that might take, because it would force me to come back to your, also I mean, you say so many things that tie this all up together so nicely. You're talking about the capacity to be alone with one's thoughts. It's very easy to be, here, and here's this like the thread's going to tie it all up. I spoke earlier about Metropolitan Kallistos Ware, who said Aristotle kept Lexicon.
Yeah.
He had some beautiful words about being, and he said we are more often human doings than we are human beings.
I agree with that sentiment.
So in my vocation, externally speaking, I'm pretty good at doing, but I'm very bad at being. People see the doing. I mentioned earlier, we got married student housing. It's a great blessing. It's like an external, like he's a great dean. He's making progress. On the inside, I think I'm falling apart on the inside. I think if the priesthood were taken from me somehow, it would likely expose the very, very poor person I am, poor in spirit. You see what I'm saying? And so hopefully that propels me to shore up my inner life, so that were that ever to happen in the extreme, or just because it would be good even in the not extreme circumstances, just like today, it would be good if my outside and my inside matched. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's also another reason why we have the season of 40 days that I was mentioning earlier. Beautifully, our church has that two major times, 2 sets of 40, one right before Christmas, and then 2 shorter time periods. But in all, it's more or less 100 or more days. So it's like a quarter or a third of the year to have like a spiritual do-over. And or a spiritual reset. And many people dread those times because it's fasting and all, you know, it's self-deprivation of certain types that many people look at with dread. I'm eager for it, because I am in a customary day, I am very lazy with myself. That's something you were mentioning a little earlier, just about the capacity of the human being to become lazy. I am lazy with myself, and oftentimes it's only from external force, a 40-day season, for example, that I can rally because it's expected of me in a certain kind of way. But I treat the expectation not as an imposition, but like therapy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you see, or is there an analogy between being fasting in the idea of being present? Like, does fasting help you to be present in the moment?
Well, I would say fasting certainly clarifies the mind. You know, I can think more clearly. I sleep better. You know, all that sort of stuff. Those are byproducts. The intention of that season is certainly to help us reprioritize, basically become a human being again. The main prayer that we say on all the weekdays for 40 days, we say, "O Lord and Master of my life, take from me the spirit of sloth, despair, lust of power, and idle talk. but give rather a spirit of chastity, humility, patience, and love to thy servant. Yea, O Lord and King, grant me to see my own sins and not to judge my brother, for thou art blessed to the ages of ages. So like that prayer is it's a reset on my outward look on humanity and my inward attitude of myself. So that's very, very important. And then it's important to tie it together with like in our church we have let's say heroes, mentors in the faith, even if we never met them and they came from 1,600 years ago. And mine is a great preacher from the 4th century named St. John Chrysostom. And he has an incredible sermon about fasting. And I only remember a line or two about it, but from memory. But one thing he says is, why do you fast from food, but you devour your brother?
Cannibalism.
Why do you why do you fast from birds? He says specifically. Why do you fast from birds, but you devour your brother? And so it is a.
How do you interpret that?
Well, I'm really good in the external of not eating meat on a certain day, but I'll curse you if you cut me off, know, okay. Or I'll be bitter towards you if you. I'll return bitterness for bitterness, or
sure.
I'll be jealous of you because you have these great talents and I've tried my whole life and I can't, or whatever it is. Mostly it's the external, not just external attitudes, but the external words that we use towards our neighbor. I mean, even the nice neighbor, we would still be mean or cruel or whatever. So his words, you fast from birds, but you devour your brother. It's a reminder that the purpose of the fasting even isn't about not eating birds. It's using that self-deprivation to see my neighbor as my life. And I think we would take it a step further. It's very complicated and very difficult, but not just my neighbor, but my enemy. That's reference to the Interrupter song earlier.
Yeah.
If your enemy was drowning, would you drag him to shore? Well, I mean, Jesus said, he didn't. I'm going to paraphrase him and put some words on his mouth, but Jesus would say, well, if your wife were drowning, of course you would drag her to the shore. And love expects that. I mean, it's like what you do because you love your wife. So he said, well, if someone would lend to you, what good? If you could lend to those who would give it back, what good is that to you? Because even a bank will do that. You know what I mean? So love your enemies. He goes on to say. So this season also teaches us, reminds us, resets us to not only love our neighbor, but more so even our enemy. And much like you were describing earlier about the let's say practice that you've put into listening to your body, being in tune to. You even mentioned this morning, I know when the caffeine's in my veins, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I can feel it.
To have a spiritual sense like that. Some might call it intuition, but an internal spiritual sense, sensitivity to how I'm treating not just my own wife, and not just my friends who love me back, but the ones who don't love me back.
I think that's coming from a non-spiritual perspective. I think whatever you could do to bring your focus to the moment, and I think fasting can do that because it makes you think about, I'm hungry right now. It really brings you into the present.
And the last point I would make, I think, is as you were noting when you said that you felt relieving the suffering of another was among the most virtuous points for a human. That in terms of fasting, that we would go voluntarily hungry for a season in order to be conscious of and ideally to help those who are involuntarily hungry. And that's like when you hear the belly go, feed me, and you say, you're not you do not rule me. And what about the people who are incapable of having this conversation because they actually didn't have the last 2 meals, you know?
Yeah.
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 Samir, I love you. Thank you so
It's been
much.
a fun conversation.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I've benefited tremendously and learned a
Same.
lot from you, and I'm very grateful that you're here. Keep coming back.
Yeah, I will. This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, my friend.